With more than 100 years of experience between the four of them, covering Minnesota high school athletics, the Minnesota Sun newspaper's sports editors bring you Sun on Sports.
And we're back with Sun on Sports. Just to reintroduce everybody, I'm Sun Current sports editor Mike Shaughnessy, joined by colleagues John Sherman, Kleven and Nick Clark. Greg Huff is the executive producer today.
Previously on Sun on Sports.
High school football. Opening games are 3rd and 4th of September, I believe. Greg, is Eden Prairie supposed to be any good this year?
Bring on Wayzata. Eden Prairie is going to be deep. They got perhaps, they talk about Central Henderson, is it? From
Chantrell Henderson, yes.
But Eden Prairie might have the second best offensive lineman in Nick Harris. He's 6'5", about 270. And he's back at a tackle. Brett Irvin might be one of the best wide receivers, 6'5", 210. He was also all-conference in basketball. Great hands and stuff. You got Taylor Grant, Mike Grant's son. He can start at quarterback for him, which I think he might. If not, he started at tight end last year and also got some snaps and stuff. But they're just so deep. Ramel Harris, their wide receiver, one of the top sprinters in the state, he's back. Mitch Holstrom, defensive back. I mean, they're just loaded. This is by far the best team. Well, I shouldn't say by far, but this could be one of the best they've had, and that's saying a lot.
Well,
so
that team they had 2 years ago that won the Prep Bowl was.
Yeah, I'd love to see this new Kennedy football coach Dick Weinberger get off to a good start. But his first foe is Eden Prairie, and that'll be Thursday, September 3rd. And like the Kennedy coach says, well, we might as well find out just where we stand right now, and this game should open the eyes for a lot of our players and stuff. Eden Prairie is going to be awfully tough. Mike, I don't know who else in the lake can stay with them. Of course, trouble is about the Lake Conference football schedule. Some of the teams don't play each other, so you don't have your true champion.
Hate that. 2 of the last 3 years we've had 2 teams run the table in the Lake Conference. The only problem is they didn't play each other. Right. Had that last year with Rosemount and Eden Prairie. Had 2 years before that with Lakeville South and Eden Prairie, although in 2006 Lakeville South and Eden Prairie did end up playing each other in the Prep Bowl. Right. Lakeville South has massive expectations this year. They have 5 of last year's front 7 returning. They have playmakers like Danny Naring back, a very good receiver. Two of their starting players in the secondary back. At least 3 returning defensive linemen, including senior named Eddie Matalimov, who Coach Larry Thompson says is basically a monster in there. He told me yesterday that anytime Eddie gets off his block, Larry just kind of shields his eyes because it's not going to end well for his offense. I'm not sure.
Do they play Eden Prairie?
I'm not sure that they do. So we could have another situation where
co-champion,
where the championship's not really decided on the field. Rosemount, I don't think is going away because they have one of the metro area's best offensive players, Zach Vra, a receiver. One of the metro area's best defensive players in middle linebacker Max Busher. And they're getting numbers in that program now. I mentioned this, I think, in a story last year that they, the notion of them being some kind of underdogs not gonna fly anymore. They're just a good program now. Rosemount, as a lot of people remember, got to the state semifinals last year before losing to Wayzata. They could make the state playoffs again this year. I think it'll probably be between them and Eastview for the Section 3 championship. Apple Valley has just 3 starters returning, so for them it's going to be much more about how they're playing at the end of the season than the beginning. Egan is making incremental strides under Rick Sutton, who Burnsville, Brooklyn Center High School graduate, coached there, coached at Mankato West, won state championships there. He's now in his 4th year at Egan. I was at Burnsville's practice this morning. Their players, as you might guess, are very motivated because they were 0-9 last year. It was the first winless season in Burnsville's football history. They don't want that repeated. I think that it probably won't be repeated because their schedule is a lot more favorable. Burnsville probably played the toughest regular season schedule in the state last year because they played Wayzata, Eden Prairie, and Rosemount, and then they played Rosemount again in the section playoffs. Some of those teams, Wayzata and Eden Prairie particularly, are now off the schedule. They get to play Chanhassen and Chaska, so I would suspect that that we'll see Burnsville with a few wins this year.
Move north, I guess, a little bit. A team that kind of got overlooked, maybe even a little more last year than some people would have thought. Champlain Park had just a tremendous team last year, and they were one of the teams that got ran over by Wayzata in the playoffs. They met in the section final and had to go up there and you know, fumbled on their first play scrimmage, and the game was essentially over. Wayzata just took over from there. But they're back this year. They won the North Suburban Conference last year. They return with a running back, Brandon Marcourt, who's a senior now, 1,300 yards, over 1,300 yards and 22 touchdowns as a junior last year. You know, he's looking at a 1,500 yard, 30 touchdown type year just because they're working in 2 new quarterbacks. So they're not gonna throw as much. They don't throw much to start with. They're more of a veer option team, so to speak, with the quarterback getting out running. But they do bring back a massive sophomore, Nick Thomas, who was an offensive lineman as a freshman last year, pushing 300 pounds. He's up over that now, I think. I mean, if you see this kid, he's just a huge kid. They returned 3 other guys who played got some time on the offensive line, and so Brandon should have some holes to run through. If he does, this kid's as tough to bring down as anybody. You know, he's got some Division I schools looking seriously at him. They're remaking their defense. They don't return any starters defensively, but at Champlain that never seems to be a problem. They've been good defensively every single year. You know, they're probably the favorite in the Northwest Suburban Conference, right with Blaine. You know, some people don't even remember this. Champlain went and beat Blaine by 2 touchdowns last year and really controlled that game start to finish. You know, Blaine went on and finished second in the Prep Bowl. Again, there's no Wayzata, which is kind of a theme, I guess, for a lot of these strong teams last year. But the Rebels will be back this year. They'll be a contender in that conference, and then they'll probably have a chance, you know, to beat Wayzata in the sections again. Another school we should mention up there, Osseo. They are kind of starting from scratch in more ways than one. They got a brand new, beautiful turf field to play on. I know they did that at Burnsville too. All the District 279 schools, Maple Grove, Park Center, and Osseo, installed field turf in their stadiums this year. Looks beautiful. We'll see what the football team that's playing on it looks like. They were a contender in the conference last year most of the year, mainly due to a magnificent quarterback in Tate Christofferson. He's off playing at St. Cloud State now, and they're kind of starting from scratch on both sides of the ball. They got a lot of work to do, Darren Lamker said, but you know, nonetheless, he gets them to play hard, and you know, by the end of the year, Osseo's going to be okay.
Park Center now has field turf, right?
Park Center has field turf. What they don't have is a win in the last 2 years. Rufus Best is entering his 3rd year as a head coach there, and they've yet to win a game. It's a tough situation they're in there in that conference. It's a power conference football-wise, and they just haven't had the numbers or the athletes to compete. You know, another team in the Classic Lake Conference is coming off, well, it was a winless season on the field. On paper, it turns out they got a win due to the forfeits that Edina had to
we don't want to
hand
mention
out.
those.
But Armstrong has a new coach this year. Ryan Bartlett comes over, the former offensive coordinator at Irondale High School. Young guy, I think he's 27. Really young for somebody to be holding this position, but he's got a head on his shoulders. And he's got some athletes to work with. The major problem in Armstrong in the last couple of years is there's athletes in those halls. They just weren't playing football. They were playing other sports. If he can get the athletes out of that building to come up with a football team, they'll be able to build something there.
Stay tuned for more Sun on Sports, your insider's guide to Minnesota high school athletics. For the scores and more, tune in daily to mnsun.com/sports. And tune in every Saturday morning to Sun on Sports on AM 950, the voice of Minnesota.